Rob Pierce,
Present.
Don Christensen,
Present.
Leo Harishny,
Present.
Kathy Julian,
Present.
and Peter Gashan is absent. We have a quorum.
Wonderful, thank you. Will you all please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag and the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. May we please have the ethics law and announcements, Ms. Sickman?
Thank you. Board members are reminded that if with respect to any matter or person coming before the board today, you've received a gift or loan, you have a pecuniary interest, you have a commitment in a private capacity, such as family, employment, business, or similar relationship, or you provided representation or counseling before an agency to a person or entity for compensation within the last year on a matter being considered, you must disclose that gift, loan, interest, commitment, or prior representation at the time the matter is being considered. You must furthermore abstain from deliberation or voting on the matter if it's clear the gift, loan, interest, commitment, or prior representation would materially affect the independence of judgment of a reasonable person. Board members are also reminded that under Board of Adjustment rules, if you've had any contact outside this meeting with any persons interested in a matter coming before the board today, you need to disclose the nature of that contact at this meeting. Additionally, this meeting is held in county chambers and via Zoom. To attend via Zoom, please log into the Zoom webinar using the link found on the agenda. You can also join the meeting by typing zoom.us into your computer browser, clicking Join a Meeting on the Zoom website, and entering the meeting ID at the top of the agenda. Alternatively, you can join the meeting via telephone only by dialing 1-669-900-9128, entering meeting ID 872-156-75749, and pressing pound. For those wishing to provide public comment via Zoom, log into the Zoom webinar using the link on the agenda and use the raise hand feature during any public comment period. To provide public comment via telephone only, press *9 to raise hand and *6 to mute.
Thank you. Can we have the appeal procedure, please, Mr. Lloyd?
Yeah, most decisions rendered by the Board of Adjustment are appealable to the Board of County Commissioners. If you disagree with the decision of the Board of Adjustment and qualify as an aggrieved person or party, you may appeal in writing within 10 calendar days from the date that the decision being appealed is reduced to writing, filed with the Secretary of the Board of Adjustment, and mailed to the original applicant in the proceeding being appealed in accordance with Washoe County Code. Please call the planning staff immediately at 328-3610 for information on the appeal procedure and the application fee.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to open up general public comment. Do we have any general public comment?
I have no general public comment in chambers and no hands raised on Zoom.
Okay, I'll close public comment and bring it back to the board for approval of today's agenda. We don't have any changes, so can I get a motion to approve?
I move that we approve the agenda as displayed.
I second.
All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Opposed say nay. Okay, motion passes. All right, so that moves us on to item number 7, public hearing items, administrative case permit number WADMIN 24-0005 for the Incline Village Community Fair. This is one of those administrative permits that we do every year. They're basically the same. If you guys have read the staff report and you do not need a presentation, then I am okay with voting on it. If you guys would like to hear a presentation, we could have the planner give a presentation.
I move that we dispose of the presentation. I
Okay.
read it.
Okay, thank you. Then let's open up public comment.
second.
What's that?
Oh,
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, public comment.
Yeah. Can we open up public comment, please?
There is no public comment in chambers or Zoom.
Okay, so we have, based upon the information we have in our packet, have read and understand that what the administrative permit is about and what it's for. And so with that, can I please get a motion?
I move to approve the proposal for the community fair. And note that I attend this every year, and it is a very good community celebration.
Okay, can I get a second?
I second Leo Harishny.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. Okay, motion passes. All right, that moves us on to 7B, which is another one of these administrative case permits. This one's for the Veterans Club Pancake Breakfast. Same thing, we've got the packet in front of us. It's the same type of thing that's been around for several years. Does anybody on the board need a presentation from the planner? Or are you guys okay with what you read and understand based upon the staff report?
I'm fine, Kathy Julian.
Okay? I don't hear anybody saying anything, so.
Likewise. I'm
You okay? Okay, so can we open up public comment? Do we have any public comment?
No public comment in chambers or Zoom.
All right, close public comment, bring it back to the board for a motion. Can I get a motion, please?
I move to approve WADMIN 24-006, the Incline Village General Improvement District Veterans Club Pancake Breakfast as presented.
All right, can I get a second?
For
I
the
second.
record, Don Christensen, I second that motion.
Okay, sounds like Kathy beat you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Okay, motion passes unanimously. That brings us to the last administrative case permit. It's WADMIN 24-0008 for the Washoe County Sheriff's Office Honorary Deputy Sheriff's Benefit Concert. It's the same thing like we have had in the past. Just repeating myself, we have a packet in front of us, a staff report that basically lays it out. Is everybody okay based upon what they understand on this staff report to skip the presentation from the planner, or do you guys need to hear the presentation?
Chair Kathy Julian, for the record, I just have one query, and perhaps a staff person can quickly answer it. The proposed parking is for the middle school, but I understand there is parking for the East Shore Express at the middle school. Is that a potential conflict? Thank you.
Katie Stark, Washoe County Planning. I was not aware of the additional parking. Engineering did review the application, and they provided a condition that the applicant will need to provide a parking agreement with the school to show that they are able to use that school parking area.
Okay, fine.
So,
Thank you very much.
you're welcome.
Okay, with that, can we open up public comment? Do we have any public comment?
No public comment in chambers. And on Zoom, the applicant is wanting to speak. Monica
Oh.
Torrero, if you could please unmute and state your first and last name for the record.
Yes, good morning all. First name Monica, last name Torrero.
The floor is yours.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So the parking is actually incorrect on the application. It should actually state that it will be at UNR College, and Lieutenant Joseph Cola is in conversation with that. And to move forward, we will definitely have an agreement in writing.
Okay. Thank you. Do we
Thank
have
you.
Do we have any other public comment?
No further public comment.
Okay. Kathy, does that answer your question on that? Are you still okay?
Yes,
with
yes,
this? Okay.
absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, with that said, and her understanding of all this, I'd like to open it up for a motion. Can I get a motion, please?
Kathy Julian, for the record, I move to approve WADMIN 24-0008 for Washoe County Sheriff's Office as presented.
All right, can I get a second?
I second Leo Harishny.
All right, I got a motion and a second. Can we get all in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. Okay, motion passes unanimously. All right, that brings us on to the next item on the agenda. That's a special use permit case number WSUP 23-0027 for Supreme Storage. Mr. Lloyd, can you please announce that?
For hearing, discussion, and possible action to approve a special use permit for the construction of a 583-unit storage facility and an on-site office space for personal storage comprised of 2 structures totaling 76,550 square feet and associated grading. Proposed ground disturbance to construct the facility is 2.55 acres with approximately 9,234 cubic yards of cut, 7,155 cubic yards of fill, and 2,079 cubic yards of imported material. Representing Washoe County in this matter is planner Tim Evans.
All right, Tim, floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you. Tim Evans, planner. So I'll just give it a minute here while the presentation comes up on the screen. All right, perfect. So the case before you today is special use permit case number WSUP 230027 for Supreme Storage. The subject parcel is located at 3900 Mount Rose Highway and has APN 049-40201, and it is highlighted there on the right-hand side of the screen. The subject parcel is 5.026 acres, and the parcel is currently undeveloped. There's nothing on it. The properties to the north it's actually bordered by the highway to the north, it's Mount Rose Highway to the north. Single-family dwellings to the east, and it has vacant parcels to the west and south of this property. The property is located in the forest planning area, and the property is zoned neighborhood commercial. So the request before you is a special use permit for the construction and operation of a 583-unit personal storage facility, and major grading is also part of this special use permit as well, and I'll go into detail a little bit more about that later in the presentation. So on the screen is the site plan that was submitted with the special use permit application. It actually took some time to actually get to this version of the site plan. So what you're seeing there is 2 different buildings that comprise this 583-unit storage facility that is a total of approximately a little over 76,000 square feet between the 2 buildings. And so one thing to mention is that Mount Rose Highway is on the left side of that screen of those buildings. And engineering was against, they were not supportive of direct access coming off of Mount Rose Highway. So staff worked with RTC and DOT, as well as engineering, to work all that out to make sure that everyone was okay with Butch Cassidy being used, which is on the right, upper right of that site plan, used for access to this property, the primary access, as opposed to Mount Rose Highway. So Mount Rose Highway, there will be an access, but it will be a limited use, and it'll just be for emergency purposes. So what you're seeing here is elevations of the proposed structure, the larger structure of the 2. This is the elevations of that, 4 different sides of the structure itself. Here's the second structure. It's slightly smaller than the other one, and both in square footage and height. And here are 2 different renderings showing actually both structures and what they could potentially look like in person. The upper right picture, that is looking from the south, from the Mount Rose Highway side, back towards the structures themselves. And the other one is looking more of in a southwestern direction towards those buildings. All right. Kind of went dark there for just for a bit. So as far as the project itself goes, there were many different things that staff reviewed and analyzed. So specifically, to condense everything down, as I mentioned earlier, the proposed structure is a 583-unit personal storage facility, including those, which is included as 2 buildings, totaling about 76,000 square feet. The tallest building, which is approximately 34 feet in height, complies with the code requirement for neighborhood commercial. And the setbacks for this property are 30 feet from the front, and that's a requirement specifically for the area plan, from the area plan, from Mount Rose Highway. So there's an additional setback beyond that set forth for the neighborhood commercial zoning. And that's one thing that I wanted to make mention of, is that it's greater than what's required by the neighborhood commercial zoning. So from Mount Rose Highway, it has to be at least 30 feet from that property boundary. And then for the sides, it's 15 feet and 20 feet from the rear. And what's proposed complies with all the setback requirements. A landscape plan was submitted with this project, or for this project, and staff reviewed everything, and everything is, as proposed, is compliant with Article 412 landscaping, and there's no variances or anything like that, or waivers that's being requested by the applicant in relation to that. The parking is another thing that staff looked at, and the applicant is proposing 7 stripe parking spaces and a total of 80 loading spaces, and those loading spaces will be in front of the actual storage unit doors, which all of that is in compliance with Article 410, parking and loading. They actually have more spaces than they actually need. And then staff also looked at a lighting plan that was submitted with the special use permit application, and everything is in compliance with Article 414, noise and lighting. There are conditions that are being proposed in relation to making sure that the height of the lights is kept at 12 feet or less. That is a code requirement, and that everything is shielded so that there's no spillover onto other properties. Another thing that staff looked at is glare. That is part of Article 414, noise and lighting. And so there's a condition that's being proposed in relation to, on the first building, there's some large windows to make sure there's no glare or anything like that. Staff is recommending that tinting or a similar type of item be used to address glare, potential glare from sunlight bouncing off and going into the neighboring homes and things like that. And then there's also a proposed condition for interior lighting of the facility, so that since there's so many windows, there could be a potential for glare at night on the neighboring properties. So at 10 o'clock, everything has to be off interior. So another item that staff looked at is hillside development. Since this property does, at the rear half of the property, if you're on the Mount Rose Highway side, has some steep slopes. And the slopes are greater than 20% on approximately 30% of the parcel or so. It has greater slopes than 20%. So as part of hillside development, we request a development suitability map, and that's what you're seeing towards the right of the screen. And all the area that's in pink, that pinkish color and the red color there, that's all the slopes that are 20% and in that range. So what the applicant is proposing is to have those storage facility structures located on the front half of the parcel to avoid actually disturbing any of that steeper slope, which all of that is in compliance with Article 424, hillside development. Yep. And so as mentioned earlier, grading is part of this special use permit. So there's a total of 9,234 cubic yards of cut, 1,155 cubic yards of fill, and 2,079 cubic yards of imported material. Everything that's being proposed as far as slopes is there's not going to be any greater slope than a 3-to-1 slope, and everything will be revegetated with native plant species. And there is, and you can't necessarily see it on the actual picture that's on the screen there, but there is towards the bottom portion of that picture, there's a 10-foot rock wall and similarly engineered retaining wall that is proposed for that area that has the steeper slope. They're putting in that retaining wall there. And as proposed with the grading that they have proposed, and engineering reviewed it as well, everything is in compliance with Article 438 grading. So the project was sent to 16 agencies for review, and 8 agencies provided conditions, which are included in Exhibit A of the staff report. Proper noticing occurred for this project, and it was sent to 77 parcels. No public comments were received as a result of the noticing. And staff is able to make all 5 findings as detailed on pages 20 and 21 of the staff report. And staff recommends the Board of Adjustment approve special use permit case number WSUP 23-0027 and provides the motion on the screen as well as in the staff report. And I'm available for any questions, and the applicant also has a presentation as well.
Thank you, Tim. Would the applicant like to make his presentation at this time?
Morning, Chair Pierce. Morning, Mr. Hirschney, and good morning, Mr. Christensen. And who's the fourth commissioner on?
Kathy.
Oh, Kathy, okay, good morning. Thank you for your time this morning. John Krompottek with KLS Planning representing the applicant. We appreciate the staff analysis, staff report, all the conditions accepted as stated. And I'd also like to introduce the two gentlemen behind me who've done a fine job in their participation in their disciplines of expertise, our civil engineer, Chris Wechter, and David Joachim, the traffic engineer, both with Kimley Horn. I think I'm going to scoot through this quicker because staff touched on more than I expected, and we never know until what they get to what they're going to present. NC site, as you know, it needs to use double, two thresholds for a use permit grading and the use. What I'm going to focus on is our approach to this project. Key issue, really, I think there's 4 key issues, but nothing more significant than this. At one point, we started with access to the highway. You can see it's now emergency gated access only with the singular access programmed to Butch Cassidy. That's a result of engineering review, high speeds coming down the highway, another access point with an opportunity to take that safety issue off the table, which we've accomplished now, and the anticipation of the RTC project coming in 6 or 7 years. It allows us to make use of Butch Cassidy. It's done to the satisfaction of the applicant, my client. By the way, he's made the trek. I forgot to introduce him, Joe Strobel from Seattle this morning, and he's with us as well. So that's fundamental to the overall approach to the project. It was a major change midstream, but I think we got a good result. This landscape plan is touched, the staff touched on. What is most important here is the preservation of the hill on the south side. There's a community issue there, there's an environmental issue there, and then you can see the restoration area in yellow. It's easily to see what's really the result of the grading plan that Chris prepared. And then you see the couple of tiers of rock walls to minimize disturbance on the corner there. So I think that's very well done in terms of minimizing the grading and the restoration part as well. See the rock riprap. If there's any citizens, this was, it's not intuitive to see that rock riprap area, which is actually part of the subdivision on the other side of our buffer line. And so there it is in a different view, but that is actually the property line, which is not intuitive because typically we have them at the house, the back property line. So in this case, there's that established buffer with the riprap, and then our buffer in addition to it, the 15 feet as required by code stated by staff, which again is right there. The density of trees for screening, so it's really a double buffer. There's just a representation from the highway of the hill that's going to remain, gives you some perspective there. There is a lot of topo on it, and it's got a beautiful vegetative cover, so it will remain as you see it today. And there it is from the property owner, if you can imagine the corner, the northernmost house adjacent to the highway, right on their property line. You can see that it is significant. So we're pleased to be able to save it as you see it. Trip generation, I share this with you because, traffic's always an issue, but in this case, given that people made their investment in their single-family neighborhood, one of the biggest things was what about the use and what about the intensity of the use, and nothing better than traffic to illustrate it, but you can see by way of comparison, how minimal the storage trips are in relation to the two selected ones which show the other extreme of intensity, a gas station 30 times more intense, and fast food 20 times more intense. Architecture, staff touched on this. There it is from Mount Rose Highway, beautiful elevation. Same, different perspective, but you get the idea. Once again, from the highway, slightly different orientation. And then there's the one that you see, that's probably the best representation of what you would see from the residences. Of course, this is across the street and looking down on it, but you get the idea of the building B and the building A. We do have a lot of separation physically relative to the height. I think it's about as good as you could expect. I think rather than go through each one of these individually, in my understanding and working with the neighborhood and our team, twice we met with them, the sum of issues really are probably foremost, a lot of people asked about the use, the privacy, the access, the lighting, the landscape buffer, hours, and the construction. And so that's part of that summary. There was staff touched on all of these. Basically, we're over landscaping on the buffer area, and then the rest exceeds code as well. It's remarkable to me, but code is code, and it's not necessarily design, and we got to deal with code compliance, and that results in 95 trees and almost 600 shrubs, which is interesting to me. I would like to share this in a bit more detail because this was really important to the community and our response to that. Staff touched on the condition to turn off the lights at 10 o'clock. Office hours 9 to 6, 7 days a week. We do have security lighting, and then exterior lights. They will be shut off after 10 p.m. as noted in the condition, and then cut off lighting as well. So it's very much corralled to the site and also kept tight with respect to extended hours. And there is our project team. I didn't mention Robin Murphy, Jackson, Maine. He's a very talented architect and did a fine job. I love the way that we represent these storage facilities now to look more like office buildings, and they have something much more pleasant to the eye and to the community. So with that, that's all I have, commissioners, board members, John Krompottek, and be here for any questions for me and myself or the team. Thank you.
Thank you. This time I'd like to open up public comment. Do we have any public comment?
There is no public comment in chambers or hands raised via Zoom.
Okay, we'll close public comment, bring it back to the board for discussions and questions. Do we have any discussions or questions?
Kathy Julian, for the record, I just have a question about, could staff or the applicant elaborate on the pedestrian way in front of the building along Mount Rose Highway? Exactly what might this look like? I understand it's a multi-use path.
Do you have any more question on that? Do you? Okay, you want to speak to that?
Hi there, Chris Wechter for the record. I'm with Kimley Horn, and I'm the civil engineer on the project. I want to talk about the multi-use path. So we've been coordinating with the RTC on this specific item, and they plan for us to incorporate a pedestrian path of our project into that multi-use path. We will be coordinating with them, similar to the RTC project to the south on Butch Cassidy, for access to that area. And they have conditioned, as you can see on the project already, us to do so, to coordinate with them. And that's what we plan to do. But we plan to provide that pedestrian access from the nearest side on Mount Rose Highway to that multi-use path.
Okay, thank you.
I have question for Tim, a couple of them. So if I'm reading this correctly, you're asking for a 7-year permit, is that correct?
Tim Evans, planner. Yeah, so the reason being for that condition in there is in relation to what I was talking about with the access issue. So it'll allow everything to work with RTC and their overall plan to connect Butch Cassidy and everything and have that go through. And it just gives the applicant time, RTC time to actually get closer to implementing the plan for Butch Cassidy and the connections there and everything else. So that's what the conclusion was to go ahead and give that 7-year time frame to allow that to happen.
Do we have, that doesn't seem normal. Normally it was like 2, right?
Yeah, as far as the 7 years, it is a longer span of time. It was that, but that 7 years was projected between talking to Washoe County Engineering, RTC, NDOT, and planning staff. That was what we concluded in the multiple meetings that we had, that was the best time frame for this project.
Okay, yeah, I'm reading the RTC thing in there. The project's in preliminary design for future extension, but not yet finalized for the 2030 timeline. Is there any possibility that maybe the applicant could just come in and do something like there to meet that? Because that's extension, but if I'm reading the plans correctly, maybe I'm not, the entrance will be right at the end of Butch Cassidy, so I don't understand why we're asking for 7. Based upon my personal experience with RTC, sometimes they put timelines on things, but they don't actually come to provision. They just kind of keep going based upon the needs of the areas and stuff like that. So I'm just questioning the 7 years. Why do we have to go to 7 years based upon an estimated time frame?
Yeah, that's definitely something that we looked at is, pulling it back, a shorter timeline. But, in speaking with RTC, that was the best solution that we could come up with was the 7 years. Beyond that, I can't think of any other potential way that the applicant, since we had multiple meetings with engineering, NDOT, and RTC, that they would be able to do anything further beyond having that condition the way it sits today in order for them to do their project and make everything work and all the agencies satisfied with what was being proposed as far as the connections from Mount Rose and Butch Cassidy.
Okay. So that would be a make it or break it.
Yeah.
If they don't have it, okay.
Exactly.
Did you guys have a neighborhood meeting?
Yes, a neighborhood meeting was held for this project.
And was there any questions? I don't remember hearing that in
There
the
was,
presentations.
let me pull up the staff report. There were questions specifically in relation to, I believe, like construction, the hours and things like that. There's specifically a condition that's being recommended
that.
in relation to address that. The overall look of the building as well. So, I'm sure the applicant could probably speak to even more about exactly everything that happened in the meeting than I can. But,
Okay.
based on everything that was provided to planning staff, that was, all the questions were addressed that were provided by the public in the meeting.
Okay. All right. Can I ask the applicant, John, can I ask you about that meeting? Can I get some highlights from that neighborhood meeting?
Yeah.
I'm one of those guys that I really care about the public input on projects and stuff, so.
Can you load my
I'm really
PowerPoint real
interested.
quick, Adrian? Yeah. I'll go through those bullet points, just some of the summary issues.
I saw those, but I didn't hear you say that they came from the neighborhood meeting, so.
That is specifically
elaborate.
from the neighborhood meeting, and I apologize for the skipping through that. Let's see. Could you,
Okay.
could you pull that up to like, what do they call it, full screen or? Okay, thank you. We did have 2 meetings, one at the South Valleys Library.
Okay.
And the other one was Zoom. Zoom was more attended. And so here's some, and then, there's subsets of them.
It's a very nice-looking building. You guys did a great job on design.
Pleased to hear you say that, sir. So here's comments from two. This is not exhaustive, but, entry, why not entry along the west property line? We explained to them the grades, that it has to go on the east side. It's entirely a product of the grades on the site and engineering the site. How long will the construction be? They were just concerned about, the houses, particularly on the property line, about disruption. Through the construction hours, we accepted the conditions, so of course we're restricted there. And then the timeline of construction. Related on the third bullet point, construction noise and how do we mitigate? Again, it's about hours. Actual demand, that's interesting. Of course, it's not an SUP item, but it's a fair question. And, Mr. Strobel has done many of these with this particular operator, Superior Storage. They've got a very viable model. He did market analysis to show this area actually has demand for this.
Okay.
If you care to hear about that. Will there be screening? We talked about the screening for that buffer adjacent on the east side. And then, responses to those more specifically, there they are.
Okay.
And I'm not going to go through each one of those. You
No,
can see
that's
them.
fine.
but
You don't
yeah,
have to. I
okay.
just wanted to make
No,
sure.
no, I appreciate the question. What is the timeline in terms of construction? We don't know, and that does relate to your prior question about the 7 years. The key, we also met with RTC. We had the understanding and agreement that this is the CIP 2030 project. The applicant is a critical item to get that leg of Butch Cassidy extended to have access from the signalized intersection eventually. And that became one of you said it, deal breaker issue.
Yeah, I did.
And so now that he knows that there's a CIP project identified that's has preliminary funding, that takes care of it, at least in the longer term as it relates to the condition of approval. So we're absolutely thankful for that condition and hope you see the merits of that and how necessary it is. And the next communication was response to their questions, which we provided. I'm thankful to say that I think they're happy because nobody responded to public comment
Right.
in the noticing, So we did work extensively with them, particularly about that interface with the adjacent property line.
Okay.
And I think that covers it.
Okay. All right. That's all the questions I have. Thank you. Appreciate it. Does anybody else have any questions?
Yes, I do.
Go ahead.
For the record, Don Christensen. John, if you could take the podium again.
Yes.
Again, good seeing you this morning.
Thank you very much.
I am a victim, personally, of a very similar project out on the Pyramid Highway. And I have some concerns about dark skies and lighting. And if we could look at Exhibit D, I think that is the best rendition of the layout of this project. And I agree with my colleague Rob that it's really a nicely designed building, and aesthetically I think it's an asset. But my concern, as it applies to a very similar project in my neighborhood, has to do with lighting. The reference, the corner building, it has 34 feet?
34 feet at the tower. The
Yeah.
primary structure is much
Okay, so
shorter.
I'm looking at those windows. And is that a similar design of what currently the U-Haul people are putting out as far as an exposure to an inside corridor? And in the case of the U-Haul building, it's lit 24 hours a day, very bright. And the inside walls are painted white. And then they have a sign, and I don't see on this illustration where your exterior signage is, but there's something on that wall. I saw a similar rendition. What's the nature of those windows, and is that an exposure to an interior hallway?
No. It's just architectural feature. There's no looking through those windows, there's no occupancy of the space behind them with people. It's just storage.
Okay.
And so-
I can tell you in my experience, the light just floods out of this other building, and
It was a
Right.
big issue. If you saw in my opening slide, I showed the facility a couple years old right down the street, right on the highway. We've worked with staff quite a bit on this issue because it came up with the community. Lights off at 10 o'clock.
10 o'clock, yeah.
So that whole thing of glow, and I think we do have a different design here. I've specifically asked the architects about what is this, because people see a window and think people are looking out that window into their residence. It's not the case. It's just an architectural feature, false front. So then the only issue remaining, since there's no privacy issue, is the lighting part, and we've got that
you
dealt
got
with.
dark skies.
That's
which
right.
I'm-
Glare, yeah.
Yeah.
Particularly on the Mountain Rose Highway, I'm pretty much death on that. It needs to be shut off at 10 p.m.
Yeah.
10 p.m.
Okay, well, that satisfies my
Thank
my
you.
questions there. Thank you, John.
Leo, Kathy, you guys have any questions?
Kathy Julian, for the record, yes, I'm still a little confused about the timing of the Butch Cassidy Road and how that is coordinated with the construction of this building. Are they intending this road is built within the next, it sounds like within the next 6 years, but when are they intending this storage facility to be built?
Tim Evans, planner. So as far as when the storage facility would be built, it would be built, if approved today. They would apply for their building permits and, within, I would say, the next year or so, construction would potentially start. As far as their exact timeline for construction, the applicant can provide more on that. But the reason for the compromise, so to speak, with the access and this condition is just to allow them so that the project isn't just completely killed, that we gave them that 7-year timeline because that's what RTC is projecting, that within that 7-year timeline, things will have been moved forward to the point that the connections will potentially be made and things like that. So in order to not have this project wait 7 or 10 years or something like that, we went ahead and gave them that timeline so they can go ahead and work on actually doing this project here soon, here in the future, as opposed to 7 years down the road or just totally killing the project.
So conceivably, they could have the building built before the access road is built. Is that the case?
So the proposed access that was shown on the site plan that's in the staff report, that will definitely be going in. It's just further improvement beyond what is currently proposed in that site plan that is set forth in RTC's plan that would be addressed. So there will be access, it's just going to be improved in the future to additional requirements that's in RTC's plan at that 7-year mark.
I'm sorry, my main concern is that it's clear that access from Mount Rose Highway is not favored by a number of people, and I would tend to agree with that. My concern is that this gets built, and without the Butch Cassidy access, the applicant comes back and says, we need access from Mount Rose Highway. Is that a possibility?
No. So as far as obtaining any kind of primary access from Mount Rose, that's not going to happen. It's going to stay for the time being. It's going to stay as an emergency access, maybe in the future or something like that. Who knows what will happen if RTC wants to do some different things or whatnot, but I'm not going to speculate and go down that road. But as far as Butch Cassidy goes, that access will be their primary access, and it will stay that way.
So there is already, or there will be soon, an access from Butch Cassidy? I
Yes.
thought there was.
Yeah, so
Oh.
as part of that, Butch Cassidy does come down from that northern, I'm thinking about it correctly, northern portion down to that property. So that connection into the property will be from Butch Cassidy. They just won't be allowed to go all the way through, obtain access from Mount Rose. So there will be an access there. It just won't be up to what RTC's plan is in the future. So
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, comments, concerns? Okay, I'll ask for a motion then. Can I get a motion on this?
Leo Harishny. I move that after giving reasoned consideration to the information contained in the staff report and information received during this public hearing, the Washoe County Board of Adjustment approve with conditions special use permit case number WSUP 23-0027 for Joe Strobelli, CPD Mount Rose LLC, with the conditions included as Exhibit A to this matter, having made all 5 findings in accordance with the Washoe County Code Section 110.810.30.
All right, can I get a second? I'll ask again, can I get a second? Okay, we don't have a second on this, so that means it dies, right?
Oh, the chair certainly has, you can certainly second. Are you saying you're not going to second it?
Well, I've got a concern with
Okay.
with a couple of the issues, so.
Well, if I may interject, for the record, Don Christensen, I think I can kind of read where you're headed with this, with the 7-year permit, and this seems excessive, and that's why I reluctantly will not care to second this particular motion as presented. Again, I may be putting words in your mouth, but I'm concerned about the 7-year.
Kathy Julian, for the record, the reason why I'm reluctant to second this is, and perhaps I'm just dumber than yogurt here, but I am still not absolutely clear on the ability of this to go forward without the applicant coming back to the board in 1 or 2 years' time to say, we're not able to get this Butch Cassidy connection done right. We want to have an entry from Mount Rose Highway. And it will be essentially like a fait accompli. And that's where my concern is. So can someone address that, I guess?
Yeah, I think Tim already did. He said that that's not going to happen. RTC will not allow it to come down from, or have access from Mount Rose Highway. It's a safety issue. So it has to be accessed from Butch Cassidy.
And is Butch Cassidy already established?
It is, yes, and it's paved.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, can I clarify?
I guess so. Go ahead.
It's an important issue. It's critical to the applicant. The 7 years, we're not, there's a $15 million public improvement project that, what I'm understanding from him, and I know this man very well, we went to graduate school many years ago. He's, made a huge investment to this time. The 7 years, it might be 3 years, it might be 4 years. You heard me up there, noodling this with him. He does not have a project without an ability for his investors to see that this road is real. The realness of it is the CIP putting it on 2030 and it being constructed in that time frame. If he can go forward quicker, he will do so. Okay, I mean, there's a lot of fluidity here. To me, the risk is, it is aggressive on a typical SUP basis, but it's an extremely unique condition, thus the 7-year request. But he'll go quicker if he can, and that we will not be asking for access to the Mount Rose Highway. It's gated emergency access. I want, Board Member Julian to understand and appreciate that that's closed off. Staff and NDOT, we've had our own set of meetings, RTC, NDOT, and engineering staff at Washoe County. It's game over on access to the highway. I want you to feel good about that. We have legal access to Butch Cassidy. The completeness of the access is the 2030 plan, the RTC Butch Cassidy extension, of which might go through the site. They got 2. So there's a lot of moving parts there. So I'm asking to consider this as a developer risk issue and not exposure to the community.
Kathy Julian, for the record, I'm willing to second this based on what I've heard today.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye,
Aye.
and those opposed?
Nay.
Nay. So 2-2, split vote. So that's a failure, right?
Yes, Chair.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, would there
Yes.
be a consideration by the board to amend the condition to reduce the years from 7 down to a fewer years? Would that be a consideration that this board
I would
offer?
definitely consider that, but the applicant made it clear that they're not good with that. It's a make it or break it.
He just told me if we can do 5, and he'll take his chances, and maybe we can influence RTC to expedite the construction of that. You know what I mean? That kind of stuff's fluid.
Okay, if you're okay with a 5, then I'm okay with
Well,
this. So we can
thank you very much.
amend the condition and we can bring it back and we'll do another vote. We don't normally do this, but
Yes.
in this
Thank you
particular
very much.
situation,
We'll go with 5.
if it's okay with legal, I would bring it back with an amended condition of 5 years instead of 7.
You can take a new vote.
Okay, so as the board understands, we're bringing it back to the board for another motion and another vote based upon, we're changing the timeline from 7 to 5 years. Can I get a motion, please, with that amended condition in there? Please.
Leo Harishny, again, I move that after giving reasoned consideration to the information contained in the staff report and information received during this public hearing, referencing an adjusted timeline from 7 years down to 5 years in the future, the Washoe County Board of Adjustment approves with conditions the special use permit, case number WSUP 23-0027 for Joe Strobelli, CPD Mount Rose LLC, with the conditions included as Exhibit A to this matter, having made all 5 findings in accordance with the Washoe County Code Section 110.810.30.
Okay.
Yeah, for the record, I second.
All right, we got a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes unanimously, 5 years. Thank you. That brings us on to special use permit, case number WSUP 24-0002 for Hoddenfield. I apologize if I said that wrong. Single-family dwelling. Mr. Lloyd, can you please announce?
Of course. For hearing, discussion, and possible action to approve a special use permit for a 6,637 square foot single-family dwelling with an existing 10,000 square foot retail commercial building defined as a mixed-use project at 250 Village Boulevard. A special use permit is required for single-family dwellings in the Incline Village Commercial Regulatory Zone. The applicant is also requesting to reduce the front and side yard setbacks. Representing Washoe County in this matter is Senior Planner Courtney Wyke.
Courtney, floor is yours.
Okay. Good morning. Normally I say evening, right? Courtney Wyke, Senior Planner. As Mr. Lloyd just stated, the item before you is special use permit case number WSUP 24-0002 Hoddenfield. I really was practicing this morning, so maybe the applicant can clarify how that's pronounced. Okay, so the subject parcel, and we just went a little too far, sorry about that, is 35,979 square feet, just a little under 1 acre. The regulatory zone is Incline Village Commercial. Surrounding parcels are developed similarly with single-family dwelling and accessory structures. And is located on the corner of Incline Way and Village Boulevard. Apologize, that my PowerPoint got a little messed up. All abutting properties are within the same regulatory zone. I think we're back on track. Okay. Here's an overhead shot of the Google Earth image. To the north is a 4,300 square foot office building. To the east is a 6-unit condominium complex and a 4,000 square foot office building. To the south is a 3,000 square foot commercial building, and to the west is a medical office and 2 undeveloped parcels. The subject site is developed with an approximately 10,000 square foot commercial building with both warehouse and retail space uses, and this was constructed in 1975. So the request is for a special use permit for the construction of a single-family dwelling, which is required pursuant to Washoe County Code, Section 110.220.145, which is required in, and I apologize, that says Wood Creek. It should say Incline Village Commercial Regulatory Zone, as shown there highlighted in yellow. Here is the site plan. It's proposing a 2-story single-family dwelling and would include a primary bedroom, kitchen, 2-car garage, and 3 additional on-site parking spaces, a workshop, a garden on the first floor. In 4 bedrooms, a kitchenette, and office on the second floor. Access to the proposed dwelling would be from Incline Way on the north of the site plan there. Okay, as proposed, the location of the single-family dwelling does not meet the minimum setbacks of 30 feet in the front and 12 feet on the sides for a residential use type for a parcel greater in size than 35,000 square feet, as shown in the graph highlighted above. As proposed, the setbacks are 15 feet 2 inches in the front yard and 10 feet on the east side yard. The Tahoe area plan anticipates the difficulties that slopes and corner lots can pose to development and provides alternative flexible development standards in certain circumstances. Washoe County Code 110.220.60B allows primary structures to be built up to the front property line when slopes in the front half of the lot exceed 20% or is on a corner lot. And that is so long as the engineering division determines the required standards can be met per that particular code section and was outlined in the staff report items 1 through 6. The applicant has since submitted an administrative review application, WDADAR 24-0005, to reduce the front yard setback from 30 feet to 15 feet 2 inches. And the engineering division provided comments on the application and indicated no concerns with the proposed reduced setback and that it had met all the certain criteria I previously discussed. Additionally, the applicant has submitted a minor deviation of standards, WDMOD 24-008, to reduce the side yard setback from 12 feet to 10 feet. A minor deviation allows for a deviation not to exceed 10% of the applicable development code standard. The applicant has requested to deviate 10% of the side yard setback of 12 feet, which meets the minor deviation requirement. Both of these permits have been approved, and therefore the proposed location and reduced setbacks are compliant and consistent with the development code. The application was sent to all applicable or affected agencies, and their conditions of approval have been included in the packet. No comments or concerns were expressed by any of the reviewing agencies. Per noticing requirements, there was 81 parcels that were noticed, and we received no public comment, whether email or phone call. Staff does believe that all 5 findings can be made and were detailed in the staff report in your packet. And I have provided a possible motion for your consideration. And with that, that concludes my presentation, and I'm available for any questions.
Thank you. Is the applicant present? Would they like to make a presentation?
Board members, Phil Gillenfar, architect and a representative for the owners. Holdenfeld, which you said it pretty well. Thank you, Courtney. First off, definitely want to appreciate your time being here, but also staff has thoroughly and with much precision reviewed this. It's very complicated because the Tahoe area plan was adopted, and there are some interesting anomalies in that regulatory ordinance that have become a challenge for not just us as planners and architects, but also for Washoe County staff, which I'm sure they will enlighten you over time. Either way, we are in support of all the conditions of approval and appreciate that they have gone also to the effort of reviewing the setback situation. It's interesting that we were proposing a mixed use of single family with the commercial building in order to, this family bought the building for their use and want to be able to have a live-work kind of situation. And there's some residential units just to the east. Interesting that most of the projects in this, well, I'd say most of the land in this regulatory zone are built out. And they were all built under the commercial zoning of 10-foot setback on all sides. And there's an interesting situation now where the new Tahoe area plan regulatory ordinance has created this kind of multi-tier zoning and setbacks within each individual parcel, which it makes it really interesting. I tried to explain to Trevor Lloyd, you know, if we had a vertical building and we were going to build a commercial building and we had the building at 10 feet because we wanted to have nice access from the street and the sidewalk, then the residential on the second floor would be 30 feet back according to the way the rules were written. And maybe we need to look at the way that functions in the future, and hopefully that will happen. But either way, we also contacted the neighbors. I know they got notice, but we personally notified the neighbors to the east because that was, we felt, the most impacting neighbors because of the consolidated residential zone. Everything else around us is commercial except that. And their HOA sent an email to us, which I forwarded to Courtney, that they said they had no real concerns with the development proposal. If you have any questions for me, I'm available to answer them and certainly appreciate your support of this project. Thanks.
Thank you. At this time, I would like to open up public comment. Do we have any public comment on this matter?
No public comment in chambers and no hands raised on Zoom.
Okay, we'll close public comment, bring it back to the board for discussions or questions.
Kathy Julian, for the record, I have a question. Could perhaps staff or the applicant discuss a bit about how snow, I'm very familiar with this corner, and I've gone to the carpet company, the flooring company that's in that commercial building and parked there. What is the plan for snow removal? And I understand the proposal of a 6-foot fence was modified to a 3-foot fence with the idea that this would improve snow removal. Could someone discuss that issue of how snow removal is done now and how it will be done going forward? Thank you. And with particular interest in preservation of the pathway for people to walk in that neighborhood, because it is used by a number of pedestrians. Thank you.
Phil Gillenfar again. I can answer that. Generally speaking, the area where we're proposing the house currently, I would say since 1974, has been used primarily for just parking a lot of vehicles on the empty lot. And snow removal was just kind of shoved into the corner and all around. When they built the building, I don't think anyone really paid attention. Thankfully, now we have an ordinance in place that says you have to have a surveyor substantiate where your building is on your property because, you know, the parking lot is halfway out into the right of way, et cetera. So there's a lot of, and it's all asphalt along Village Boulevard, as she indicated. Part of the proposal of the residential work is we also have plans to redesign the parking lot for the commercial building, set it back to allow the Tahoe area plan improvements, design criteria improvements like the sidewalk along Village to be enhanced and improved, and remove all the asphalt that just goes from the road straight to the building so there's more of a landscape buffer. That will also create snow storage along that area, along the front, is at least when it comes to Village Boulevard. On Incline Way, we had originally indicated a fence, and the property owner actually said, no, we don't want a fence. We actually just want a little split rail, just kind of just to contain a visual presence of our property versus the sidewalk. And so that area, we're going to shift back as a result of the conversation we had with the engineering department. So there's plenty of room to keep the pathway clear of snow, but also have plenty of area for snow along the frontage there. And so there's also still a space between that proposed parking lot revision and the building to allow for snow removal from the county removal, but also from the property owner removal. I hope that clarifies.
Yes, thank you. Follow-up question, though. The application went to TRPA, and they had no response. Could the staff respond as to why TRPA didn't respond to this? Thanks.
Courtney Wakey, Senior Planner, Washoe County. Thank you, Ms. Julian. I myself, staff, has been coordinating with TRPA on the requested SUP. It is currently under review by TRPA. They are waiting, and it's fairly typical for TRPA not to take action until the local jurisdiction has for the requested special use permit. It is also not uncommon for TRPA not to formally comment or provide something in writing for affected Tahoe permitting agency comments from them. So we have been in coordination, and TRPA, to my knowledge, is just awaiting our approval. Does that answer your question, Ms. Julian?
Yes, thank you.
Leo Harishny, I just had a clarification, I'm still learning how to read the architectural drawings. I'm curious about I have a question about the driveway access for whoever, and the 15-foot setback, is that 15 foot from the edge of the road, or is that 15 foot back from the existing pedestrian walkway?
Courtney Wakey, Senior Planner, Washoe County again. The setbacks are from the property line. So it wouldn't, without having it right in front of me in relation.
So I guess here,
It might be.
I'm referencing this.
Yes, let me,
It
it looks like it's 25.
Page 9.
25 feet from the edge of pavement.
From the roadway,
Right.
from incline way.
Yes.
Okay,
So that's the edge
okay.
of pavement. And
All right.
oftentimes people see the edge of pavement and assume that that's their property line, so it's actually quite a bit further of a distance, so.
Right, and that makes, I mean, that would make sense to me that, yeah, the property line would be,
Further south, from the edge of.
from the walkway,
Right.
or, yeah, on the other side of the walkway. Okay, I just wanted to clarify on that.
Correct.
Anything? I got a question. Can we pull up Courtney's slide? Very last one, I think is what I think I saw something on there that I want to address. Okay, back up one.
Other way.
We'll back up one more. It was right towards the end. Now, there was something in there that said that it met North Valley's specific plan. I saw it just briefly towards the end. And this should be incline. Yeah, I remember seeing it in there. It said something about North Valley area plan. I just want to make sure, right there.
Oh,
A,
yes, thank you.
on A, that's it. So,
Apologize,
That
Courtney
one.
Wakey, Washoe County again. I did want to, because the following item is going to be a similar case for a special use permit for a single-family dwelling, and I was using, making sure our PowerPoint presentations were consistent and similar, and unfortunately, it looks like I did not update that portion, so that is merely a mistake in the PowerPoint. All the findings in your motion and the staff report are accurate,
Okay.
however.
All right, I just needed a point of clarification
Yes,
on that.
thank you for that.
Yeah,
That's a great catch, and I wish I would have caught that
that's
last
okay.
night. Thank
It's
you.
all right. Any more, thank you. Any more discussion or anything? I'll open it up for a motion if we don't have anything.
Oh, public comment.
Oh, sorry, public comment. Sorry, I got ahead of myself.
Okay,
on
no
that.
public comment in chambers or Zoom.
Okay, sorry. Close public comment, bring it back for a motion.
All right. Leo Harishny on the board. I move that after giving reasoned consideration to the information contained in the staff report and information received during this public hearing, the Washoe County Board of Adjustment approves the special use permit case number WSUP 24-0002 for the Hodnafield Cup Community Property Trust, having made the required findings in accordance with Washoe County Code Section 110.810.30 and 110.804.25.
Okay, do we have a second?
I second.
Kathy seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes unanimously. Yep. Okay, that brings us on to,
Rob, can we have a break?
sure, yeah. So let's take a 5-minute break. It's 9:11. We'll come back at 9:16. Is that enough time?
Yeah.
5 minutes? Okay.
Recording.
I
Okay.
get it.
All right.
All right.
We'll put
Okay.
that one on the knee.
All right, go ahead.
Press.
All right, let's bring the Board of Adjustments meeting back to order. It's 9:21. We are on 7F. Let me just double check that. I'm pretty sure it's 7F. Yeah, 7F. Special use permit case number WSUP 24-0007 for the Collier, and excuse me if I say that wrong, single-family dwelling. Mr. Lloyd, will you please announce?
Will do. For hearing, discussion, and possible action to approve a special use permit for the construction of a new 6,810 square foot, three-story single-family dwelling with a basement. The existing single-family dwelling, which was constructed, it says will be has been demolished under building permit WBLD 24-100965 that was issued on April 25th of 2024 in order to construct the proposed single-family dwelling. Representing Washoe County in this matter is case planner Tim Evans.
All right, Tim, floor is yours.
Thank you. Tim Evans, planner. So the case before you today is special use permit case number WSUP 24-007 for the Collier single-family dwelling. So this picture's on the screen. So the picture to the right of the screen, that is an aerial view, basically like a vicinity type map that shows the location of the parcel. The Lake Tahoe is to the right, and then to the left, that white line there is actually the state line between Nevada and California. And then you can see that there are, it's the residential area. Around there you can see there's additional lots similar to the one that's the subject of the special use permit today. And then the top left picture that you're seeing there, that is actually, and you can kind of see the house, it's the dark, almost black-brown kind of color towards the back of that picture there. And the purpose is to illustrate the actual access road to get to this property, which is Pahoot Drive, as well as illustrate the actual topography of the property. So the property itself is fairly steep. I'll go into it a little bit in more detail later, but on average, for this specific property, there's about an average slope of about 28%. So the topography is steep. This area is potentially subject to avalanche, and I'll discuss that more in detail later. And so this property, as mentioned, is at 425 Pahoot Drive, and it has APN 123-14321. So the property is 0.295 acres, and the surrounding parcels are similarly developed with single-family dwellings and accessory structures. And the property is located in the Tahoe area, planning area, and in a zone Crystal Bay. And there's another picture to the right of the screen that you can see that there's the subject parcel is highlighted within the subdivision. So the request before you today. So the request is for a special use permit for a dwelling unit, and there is a reason that the code sets forth the requirement. That's specifically in relation to environmental sensitivity of the area, limited emergency access, and geologic hazards, as well as potential public safety issues. And I'll elaborate more on those specific hazards and things like that a little bit more in the presentation. So this is the site plan that was submitted with the special use permit application. The proposed dwelling is highlighted there in yellow. And so to summarize and give some history of this project prior to the actual submittal of the special use permit. So there was an abandonment that was approved in 2020 for an approximate 1,200 square foot portion of Pahoot Road that was abandoned. The prior dwelling was constructed in 1941, so it was just recently demolished under a building permit, and that structure was built circa 1941, and so it's been demolished, and the proposal before you today is for the proposed single-family dwelling. The abandonment, it did go before the Planning Commission, it went before the County Commission, and it was upheld at the Nevada Supreme Court because it was appealed multiple times. The dwelling, as mentioned, there was a dwelling previously on the property, and it was recently demolished. And the proposed single-family dwelling is 6,810 square feet, and it has a 3-car garage, as well as a porch and deck. And the proposed dwelling is 31 feet in height, which meets the code requirement. And the required setbacks for the Tahoe area plan, specifically for this parcel size, is 20 feet in the front and rear, and 8 feet on the sides. And for the site plan that was submitted, the structure is in compliance with the setbacks. So specifically, Washoe County Code Section 110-220.125 natural hazards sets forth various natural hazards that should be addressed by staff during the special use permit process. And it's the whole reason for the special use permit. So one that is looked at is flood, another is seismic, another is avalanche, and the last is wildfire. And so I want to pay particular attention to avalanche. Staff analyzed all of that, all those natural hazards that were mentioned earlier. But specifically, I want to speak to the natural hazard of avalanche. So as you can see on the two maps, they do show the same information. The one on the right is from the master plan and Tahoe area plan, of our master plan. And then the one to the left is actually from the North Lake Tahoe Fire Protection District's website, and it reflects the same exact information. And what it reflects is the actual avalanche hazard area. And so as you can see there, it's kind of tough to read the legend, but the red part is the highest level that there could be a potential for an avalanche, and then it gradually goes down towards the lake and gets less and less and less potentially. And so to the south of that area, I've highlighted the actual subject parcel. So this subject parcel is not within the hazard avalanche area per these maps. And for that reason, Washoe County Code sets forth that if it was in an avalanche hazard area, that a geotechnical report would be required. And being that it's not, we're not suggesting any conditions specifically requiring a geotechnical study. So Washoe County Code Section 110-220.250 for Crystal Bay Regulatory Zone special policies. So this is tied into the special use permit requirements as well, and the natural hazards. So the first one is, is in relation to the environmental sensitivity of the area. So as mentioned earlier, there was multiple different natural hazards that staff had to review in relation to this. So the public safety issues that were reviewed were avalanche, fire, seismic, flood, and limited emergency access. And in reviewing everything, staff has no concerns, and no concerns were revealed after sending everything out to all the different agencies for review, as well as staff conducting additional research into county records and studies. And another portion that staff has to look at as part of that code section is the encroachment onto Highway 28. This property is accessed off of Bahoot Road, so that is not a concern. And then due to the sensitivity of the area and the public safety issues, all further development will be considered a special use. So this one kind of mirrors Part A that I mentioned earlier. So as far as everything that staff looked at, sent it out for review, and no concerns were revealed as part of the special use permit review. And then the very last piece is that further study of the avalanche danger is required to resolve the avalanche problem. And then the development should be consistent with the findings of that study. So staff looked into if an additional study was done, and as shown on the prior slide, the subject property is in an avalanche hazard area. There wasn't necessarily an additional study that staff could find that was done, but based on the information that I was able to locate that's in our area plan, and speaking with North Lake Tahoe Fire Protection District, and looking at those maps, the subject property is not in an avalanche hazard area. So this project was sent to 13 agencies for review, and that included the North Lake Tahoe Fire Protection District. One agency, which is specifically engineering, provided conditions. All the other agencies did not, to go through and kind of summarize the conditions that engineering proposed. So they looked at construction drawings addressing grading, an encroachment permit, and a traffic control plan. And so in specific to the traffic control plan, for construction, if there was any potential way that the roadway that I showed earlier in the presentation, if it's going to be blocked during construction for any reason, they want a traffic control plan to help aid with access in and out of that area. So proper noticing for this project did occur, and 89 parcels were noticed, and one public comment was received yesterday, and that public comment was also forwarded to the board earlier yesterday. So staff is able to make all 5 required findings as detailed on pages 11 and 12 of the staff report. And staff recommends the Board of Adjustment approve special use permit case number WSUP 24-007 and provides the motion on the screen. And also in the staff report, one thing to note for the staff report, I did notice while preparing my presentation that there is a typo. As far as the motion on the very first page is the correct motion. The motion on the last page towards the end of the staff report is also correct. It just calls out the applicant, Gillenfar, the architect, as opposed to the actual applicant themselves, the property owner. So with that being said, my suggestion is to utilize the motion that is on the screen, and as it removes the property owner entirely, it just calls out the special use permit. So I wanted to bring that to your attention. And I'm available for any questions. And the applicant has a presentation as well.
Okay, at this time, thank you, Tim. Let's hear from the applicant, and let's hear your presentation.
Board members, Phil Gillenfar, applicant's representative and architect. Once again, we appreciate the staff and the concise, thorough review, and also, we communicated with a number of the agencies just to make sure that we were clear on really the conditions of approval. And so at this point, we completely heed to the conditions and can accept all of them. We've actually done some additional adjustments with respect to meeting with the county road department. We did a robust construction management plan. We've already demoed the existing house, and so part of that process, we had the project manager communicate verbally and by memo to all the neighbors within the surrounding neighborhood so that they were aware that we were doing construction and that we were working in that neighborhood, so that they were aware the trucks were moving one day or not moving one day. So we were trying to give them as much information, and many of the neighbors have complimented us on that. And appreciate that. The special use permit, the special use requirement came much to a surprise to me because just a little history, the regulatory zone in Crystal Bay was specifically set up as a special use by TRPA at the time because of the avalanche issue, and they wanted to make sure that there was an ability to put a hold harmless on the property. We have subsequently received TRPA's approval. They've done a full review of the special use permit review, which actually are many of the same conditions that are reviewed because it's the same regulatory plan. TRPA approved that plan, and we have already prepared and recorded a hold harmless agreement that puts the release of liability on Washoe County and on TRPA on that hold harmless. We were surprised because, in 30 years of doing work, we understood that Washoe County had waived this requirement because TRPA was doing the special use. And so we didn't prepare the application in a timely manner, so now we're behind the 8 ball. And we appreciate the staff has moved this forward as promptly as they have. But given that, we looked at the county records and found that there was over 67 projects done during this regulatory requirement, and no projects, not even one, has had to go through a special use permit. Just wanted to make you aware of that because we do feel somewhat like we were selectively being enforced to follow this condition. However, we are completely fine with the conditions and more than happy to comply with them and move forward with the project in that capacity. I guess we're more concerned about how that affects us from a long-term delay on the construction side. One neighbor who has reluctantly or consistently sent concerns, many of which have been somewhat incorrect. One of the main items is, and this is the neighborhood, the highlighted in yellow are the 6 parcels, and then the one on the end is the parcel that is the subject parcel. So there are 6 homes plus the one on the end, so 7 total that access Paiute. And not necessarily on a day-to-day basis. Some of the homes are used only as vacation or, occasionally. Some of them are short-term rental, and some of the homeowners live there year-round. So there's not a lot of activity that happens on Paiute. Most of the homes that are in yellow have received a setback variance. So most of their garages are sitting right up on the 0 setback. So it makes the road situation even more challenging. The ones that are red there's red lines that kind of show the access driveway points. So you can see a lot of the access driveways are on the upper road, Wasso. And then there are a couple of parcels I crossed out, which you can't quite see, which are basically a number of the vacant parcels remaining in that neighborhood are Forest Service or Nevada State Lands parcels and will never be built. So that's kind of where we are with that. The other exhibit that I have really relates specifically to the comment made into one of the neighbors' concerns. I don't know if you have that exhibit, that second one. I was testing this out earlier. I haven't used one of these before, but so when we did the abandonment, you can see in red there, I don't know, that all of this walkway, garage, entry area, and all of this pavement that's here inside the blue line, all of that was improvements developed by this property in 1941, 1947. And the only way that TRPA, which is the governing agency for the Ottawa Regional Planning Agency, the only way that they would recognize that coverage associated with this property is if we abandoned the property. There was no other way for us to acquire that square footage of improvements that we had developed without abandoning that land to the favor of this property. Very complicated because we wanted to make sure we were not interfering with the road. Well, the concern that the neighbor brought up, you can see the yellow line represents the original line of the right-of-way, and the red line represents the asphalt that is currently there and has been there since 1940-something, 1950. We are not changing the asphalt area, and the concept keeps coming up that we're creating more of a hazard for a turnaround opportunity, but we're not touching the existing road in any form or function. What we are proposing to do is, now that we have the abandonment, that would be, this front line right here is our new property line. We're gonna move the house back, so visually you'll have a driveway going into the house, and you won't feel like you're just coming right up against somebody's house. You'll have a driveway, you'll have this whole area over here we can't have that be paved surface, so that area, because it has to be restored according to TRPA, you can't back into or drive onto, but visually it's a place where snow can be moved and et cetera. So we met with the county road department, and they were surprised to know that in 1981, this area right here in green, the county acquired in order to shift the entire cul-de-sac opportunity further to the east from this house because they didn't think this house would ever move. When I met with the county road supervisor, he was like, well, geez, Phil, this is great. I said, well, what can we do? We're going to be supplying dirt and gravel, and we'll have concrete trucks coming in and out during construction. What can we do to support the county to help enhance this area, not just for this homeowner, but for the other 6 homeowners? And they said, well, you don't really have to do a lot. It's county responsibility to take care of the road improvements, but thank you. Let's work together to find ways to kind of enhance that area. And if we need to use some of your equipment, then that'd be great. And that's where we've left it. And that was just a few weeks ago. So that was the biggest concern, I think, that was brought up by this one neighbor who has brought this up multiple times. In fact, the same neighbor has brought up complaints against the county, has filed a lawsuit against the county, has filed an appeal on the abandonment, even took it to the Supreme Court and to the Second Court of Appeals. So it's gone to the Supreme Court twice in Nevada. And now he has appealed the special use requirement at TRPA and now potentially has given you the same memo. But I wanted to make sure I addressed those concerns because, of course, for us, that's important. We're not interfering with the existing road conditions and the ability to maneuver a vehicle, emergency vehicle or otherwise, around that cul-de-sac as it stands today with the improvement. In fact, I think in the end, we will have enhanced that zone to the betterment of the neighborhood. We're meeting the setback requirements under the new guidelines, and we have prepared a very robust construction management plan, and we will intend to continue to work closely with the owners as we develop the home. Crystal Bay is a unique area in that, you know, those are fishing cabins that were built as far back as 1920. Many of those now have been replaced with very large homes. Down on Ganawabi, there's probably 18 to 20 homes that have been replaced over the years, none of which, of course, went through special use permit applications. But the fact is that in those processes, all of those considerations of how do we deal with the road, maneuvering, life safety, et cetera, have all been addressed, and we will try to continue to do that in this situation. And that's why we believe that our management plan for construction and our conditions that have been prepared by staff are all easily worked into the project, and we're more than happy to comply with all of them. So if you have any questions for me, I'm here. I appreciate your support on this project and the special use for the avalanche concerns, and we've already done a hold harmless agreement, which is required. So thank you.
Thank you. This time I'd like to open up public comment. Do we have any public comment?
No public comment in chambers and on Zoom. Let's give them a second. No hands raised on Zoom.
So we have no public comment.
One on Zoom. It's just titled iPhone. If you could please unmute and state your first and last name for the record.
Good morning. My name is Victor Elgahari. I'm the person that left the written comment. So if you have any questions for me based on what I presented, I'm available to answer those.
Thank you for your time.
Is that all the public comment we have? We don't have any more public comment.
No more public comment.
Nothing in chambers, nothing online. Okay. With that said, then I'll close the public comment, giving everybody a chance to speak, and bring it back to the board for discussions or questions. Does anybody have any questions?
Yes.
Go
Kathy,
ahead.
Julie.
Kathy, go ahead.
Okay, obviously I live here in Incline Village, and I went out to the property yesterday and toured it and took pictures and saw how incredibly narrow this road was. And my count of the houses affected on that road was upwards of 9 to 11 houses that are along Pahut. And I would think that these houses along that road do use that turnaround, because it is an extremely, extremely narrow road. At one point, there is a tree that has been scraped by vehicles going by it. It's so narrow. Perhaps staff can address the issues raised in the comment that we got from the law offices of Victor Al-Ghahari about the comments made during the abandonment hearing about improving the turnaround, and to what extent those comments about, yes, we will improve the turnaround, to what extent that has been done. And if you can make that clearer. Thank you.
Chair, if I can step in here.
Yes.
The abandonment proceedings started in 2020 before the Planning Commission. The abandonment was found by that body to not be detrimental and to be consistent with the applicable Washoe County codes for abandonment. The process was appealed to the Board of County Commissioners. The process was then appealed to Second Judicial District Court through a petition for judicial review, and ultimately the Nevada Supreme Court, where the abandonment was approved, and there were no conditions within that abandonment proceeding relating to modifying the lot as it exists today. Because the abandonment has been approved through the appeal at the Nevada Supreme Court, the lot exists in its current form without any pending litigation or any additional conditions relating to any prior applications before county boards. And any conditions that this board places need to be tailored to the permit before you. So I just want to remind the board that any conditions considered must relate to the project that is being proposed and that is before this board. There has to be that nexus, and any condition would have to be proportional to the mitigation of any harms caused by that project. So I just wanted to make that very clear. And, you know, if you would like additional clarification from staff or the applicant, that's fine.
Thank you.
I would like the suggestion made in the public comment received was a suggested solution. And I'd like to have staff's comment about that suggested solution, or the applicant's comment about that suggested solution. And again, that is being responsive to public comment, even if it appears to be one public comment.
Tim Evans, planner. So just for clarification specifically, are you speaking to the improvement of the cul-de-sac as far as access goes?
Yes, I believe. It said a solution which costs the applicant nothing has been used before and is offered. I think it was used on Ganawabi. And I think it specifically addresses the concern about emergency access and the ease of turning and so forth. So if somebody can elaborate on that, thank you.
Yeah, so this is, again, Tim Evans, planner. So as far as that goes, this project was sent for review over to engineering, as well as the North Lake Tahoe Fire Protection District. So one of the things that engineering reviewed is access, as far as, you know, road width, and like I mentioned earlier, as far as ingress and egress out of that area. There's possibly the potential that the road could be blocked. So a traffic control plan is, if that occurs, a traffic control plan would be implemented and is being required by engineering, should this project be approved today with the condition. And then as far as the actual access and the bulb portion, so to speak, of that access, in speaking with the applicant and with conversations earlier today, it sounds like there were additional conversations, as well as I believe he mentioned during his presentation, about the portion of the area to the right of the property, or if you're looking at an aerial view of the property, it would be to the right bulb portion of that, and the access. So the whole access itself potentially was shifted, and I would defer to the applicant to provide a little bit more information on that portion, because it sounds like he spoke with engineering as far as the access, and potentially it could possibly make it better in that portion for turnarounds and things like that. So I'll turn it over to him in relation to that.
And Mr. Chair, before the applicant gets up, and to address Board Member Julian's question, what we are looking at today is the request before you, which is a request for a single-family residence. Again, there were discussions that were offline that had happened. However, we rely on our partnering agencies, specifically engineering staff, as well as the staff from North Lake Tahoe Fire, to provide us with direction in terms of the appropriateness of additional improvements to address the special use permit before you today. So that really is the purview of this board, is to determine the appropriateness of the request before you, and if they're based on the input that was received from the partnering agencies, whether or not that adequately addresses those concerns.
Okay, thank you.
I have a further question. Was there a neighborhood meeting, and was a neighborhood meeting required for this project, for this SUP?
There was not a neighborhood meeting. When there is a request for a single-family residence, whether it's through a variance or a similar special use permit, they are exempt from that process.
Okay. And the I note in the construction times, there is no reference to startup of construction, it's machinery, as was in other applications here. Is there a reason why Mr. Evans left out the reference to the startup of machinery before 7 a.m.?
I cannot address that, but we can certainly add that language to that condition, Ms. Julian.
If I may speak on it, I think it's in county code when we issue, because we've had this discussion before. If I'm not mistaken, we adopted that policy quite a while ago, that they can't start before 7.
Okay, and I was just wondering why it wasn't referenced here when it was referenced in the other applications.
Yeah. Tim, can you answer that question for us?
Yes, Tim Evans, planner. So as far as that goes, yes, I agree that it's not specifically stated in here as a condition, but it is something that would be reviewed and looked at as it is in county code for that requirement.
That's what I thought it is in county code. Okay. Any other questions, Ms. Julian?
No more questions.
Okay. Does anybody else have any other questions for planner? Okay, I got a question for you, Tim. So correct me if I'm wrong, you said that they're still in the 20-foot max setback, right? That they're being compliant with that 20-foot setback in the back and in the front and...
Tim Evans, planner. So yeah, as far as what they're proposing in their proposed site plan that was submitted, it's in compliance with the setbacks.
To mitigate any of this going forward with the potential appearance of a loss of ability to safely turn around, if we pushed everything back a little bit and gave them a little less of a setback, would that possibly mitigate any of this?
You mean as far as like a potential turnaround access type
So
of
if we
thing?
push I don't know what's behind the property, where the house is, if we pushed it back a little bit and gave them like a 10-foot setback, would that?
So the difficulty with that is that people would be potentially, at least if I'm understanding it correctly from your perspective, is that people would be driving onto their property. So you're moving the house back, yeah,
Right.
it would potentially help, but then people would be crossing on a private property to turn around.
What if we gave them a little easement or something up there in the front?
That could be an option, I mean, potentially, but that would be something that I would defer to the applicant as to whether or not they'd be open to doing something like that.
Okay. Do we have a plot plan? Do you have a plot plan available that I can see, or is there not? I just wanted to
Yeah, so.
get a visual in my head here of...
Yeah, so if I have the site plan in my presentation, so if we want to bring that up.
I just wanted to see the plot plan. I don't need to go through the whole presentation,
Okay.
just the plot plan. We're looking at a residence, and I just have a couple internal questions.
Yeah, it's not doing it. There it goes. Okay. Nope. Okay, so this is the site plan that was submitted with the special use permit application here, and the house is highlighted in yellow.
So possibly page 73 in the,
Page 73?
yeah, I think it's the last page.
Oh, okay.
Does that
Yeah,
help
it doesn't show me what I wanted to see.
Okay.
Yeah, that's not, okay, I got it. All right, okay. So back on while we're on that, go back to the last, or next to the last slide. I just saw it again. Next one. Keep going. Right there. once again, on consistency, it says the North Valley Areas Plan. Is that just a typo?
Yeah, my, my sincere apologies for that. When I was preparing the presentation, it just must not have gotten saved when I made that correction, so it should say Tahoe Area Plan.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah.
Point of clarification. Okay. I don't have any more questions at this time. I just needed a clarification on those couple questions. Yes, sir.
Chair, can I address the concerns that Katie Julian brought up? Was that correct?
Yeah, briefly.
Just very briefly, I went back and looked at the aerial map, and I've been on that street numerous times because I was born and raised in Crystal Bay, so that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm an expert, but I've probably more of a native than an expert. 6 homes plus 425, so 7 homes have driveways that access Paiute. And that's what that is. The roadway that I showed you already, with this project, the roadway that it currently has existed for 50-plus years is not changing. So the ability for the homeowner to, on that street, to move around, maneuver, whether it's a fire truck, emergency vehicle, snow removal, that roadway we have not changed. We are enhancing that improvement of that roadway by moving the house, pushing the house back slightly, by opening up that. But probably even more importantly, the 1981 roadway acquisition by Washoe County to basically take that green zone that you can barely see on the exhibit, gives the county area. That area actually is graded out at the level of the road. So it's a very easy area for Washoe County Road Department to enhance that opportunity for this neighborhood. But there are millions of projects in Washoe County that Washoe County Roads are working on, and I don't know what their priority would be, but we've offered to assist in that. So as the property owner, we said this at the abandonment hearing, and we'll say it again now, and we've already communicated this numerous times with the County Road Department. If there's anything that we can do to help facilitate that, short of doing the work for Washoe County, our team would be available to assist in that. But that doesn't necessarily mean that we need to, I don't believe that we should be required to have an easement onto the property. This creates a lot of other complications with TRPA coverage and the way things are very restrictive there. The last comment that she brought up was the neighborhood reach out, and we have sent out and knocked on doors and communicated with many of the neighbors in that neighborhood. And they're very much aware of what we're doing, and had them very much involved during the demo of the house so that they understood what was happening. And we will work very closely with them, along with county engineering, in the event that we need to do any type of temporary road closure for a crane or something like that, so that they are very much aware of how they can maneuver, because we're concerned some of those neighbors are elderly, and we want to make sure that they're not stuck in their homes because we have a crane in their way. So we're trying to make sure that we're neighborly.
Right. I very much appreciate it. Thank you for those comments. I personally, seeing as how we're back here at the board asking questions and discussing it, I personally trust staff, and the information that I saw in this staff report gives me the confidence that the due diligence has been done in this case, and that giving it an approval stamp would be the right decision in my personal mind. So with that, if nobody else has any questions or comments, I would entertain a motion.
Kathy Julian, for the record, I do have a comment. And I recognize the difficulty of building in the Crystal Bay area and the difficulty of the roads in that area. I just want to make 2 comments. One on the staff report. I did find that it is a more intense use of the property, because you're going to a 4.5 times larger property with 7 bathrooms or more, as against, a couple or 2 or 3 bathrooms and 7 bedrooms or more, and so forth. So it is, in my view, a more intense use of the property. So I think it's not exactly simply a replacement of what you had before. But that aside, the second comment is, in terms of the fire departments, North Lake Tahoe Fire Department's comment, their comment is that they will conduct code compliance review upon formal submission of the building permit. And this is, and I just want to go on record with a comment about the fire department's review of these development projects in our area. One thing missing from all of this is a concern for evacuation and a concern for emergency access to these roads and how it actually works. And I find it limiting when the fire department responds with, we'll look at the building permit, as though they're very narrowly focused on what's being built and whether there's going to be sprinklers or whatever. A critical issue for Crystal Bay and all of Incline is emergency access, the roads, the pathways out in time of wildfire. And that's not a critique of this project in particular. I simply want to go on record saying this is a concern, and I think sadly, we don't pay enough attention to this. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I just want to remind the board, we are just approving a special use permit. We're not approving the building permit or anything like that. We're just giving them the go-ahead to apply for the building permit. So with that, I'd like to entertain a motion. Can I, oh, yes, sir.
Thank you. I do have a comment. Again, to compliment staff on their very thorough job on this. I agree with your comments earlier that a lot of hard work and thinking has gone into this application, and the legal part that we're not to consider today. It's been clearly established, despite the letter from the attorney that we received yesterday in public comment. I acknowledge that we do read these things, we do consider them as far as within the limitations of what approval of a special use permit is. And again, I agree with what your comments were, very well thought out. And in deference to my colleague, Ms. Julian, this development of this part of Lake Tahoe Basin, well, it goes back to 1941, my goodness. Considerations of evacuation and all the ramifications of her suggestions are really tangential to what we're here to talk about and discuss and approve. However, again, I take that very seriously. But we do have a very serious precedent of very fortunate circumstances that we've not had to engage drastic measures, and I don't think we have to really consider that. The fire department has done a great job of that, and I've probably gone on too long, but I want to acknowledge the law firm that did prepare quite an extensive brief on this. Yes, we did read it, we did ponder it, and we do appreciate the public comment. And having said all that, I'm willing to entertain a motion, or to proffer a motion.
Go ahead.
Okay. I move that after giving reasoned consideration to the information contained in the staff report and information received during the public hearing, the Washoe County Board of Adjustment approve with conditions special use permit case number WSUP 24-0007 for Gillen Farr Architecture with the conditions included as Exhibit A in this matter, and having made all 5 findings in accordance with the Washoe County Code Section 110.810.30.
Okay, we have, there you go. I think this is the one that Tim wants us to use.
Yes.
Instead of this
Changed
one,
today.
he made a comment towards the end.
Oh,
So if maybe you
I
could
withdraw-
remake that motion.
I withdraw
that
that.
reflects that.
I
would be-
withdraw that as I stated.
That's okay. I would have done the same thing.
And I will read from the script. I move that after giving reasoned consideration to the information contained in the staff report and information received during the public hearing, the Washoe County Board of Adjustment approve with conditions special use permit case number WSUP 24-0007 with the conditions included as Exhibit A to this matter, having made all 5 findings in accordance with Washoe County Code Section 110.810.30.
And this is Rob, I'll second it. So all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Okay, Kathy, I didn't hear, were you for or against?
No, I'm for, but
Okay.
I assume that the timing of the construction equipment and so forth will be as per code and as reflected in the other applications.
Yes. We have
And
insurance.
My comments were more of a general nature, just to go on record for this board, all right? Thank you.
Mm-hmm. I just didn't hear your for or against. That was my question. So it appears that all 4 of us are for it, so the motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay. That brings us on to item number 8, chair and board items, future agenda items. Does anybody have anything they'd like to see going forward? Okay. Request for information from staff. No requests. Okay, we'll move it on to report of previous board and adjustment items.
Nothing to report.
Okay, legal? Do we have anything from legal?
Nothing, thank you.
All right, let's open up the last general public comment. Do we have any general public comment?
No public comment in chambers or Zoom.
Okay, well, with that, it is 10:08. We will be adjourned. Thank you.